This is the first video I'm sharing, so tonight I have a story for you that I'm sure will unsettle you. When I first came across it, I found it both frightening and mysterious. This isn't just a legend. It's said to be a true story that happened in the far north of our globe. If you stay with me until the end, I think you'll enjoy it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts afterward. So find a quiet place, get comfortable, and listen closely. The story begins in a cold northern city, buried under snow. In this city lived a devoted man of God. His name was Erik Lund, and he was known for his strong faith and his kindness towards everyone who respected him. People often came to him with questions about religion and life, trusting his wisdom and belief. The story comes directly from him, and I will share it in his voice. One day, a family from the countryside contacted Erik. They begged him to come to their home and read sacred texts, because they believed their house was haunted by demons. They thought his faith in God could protect them and drive the evil away. Erik agreed, but he also asked a trusted friend to join him, a faithful man named Anders Diamond. Together, they promised the family they would help, whether the haunting was real or only fear playing tricks on them. After receiving the address, they traveled to the family's village. As they arrived, they saw a boy, no older than 12, waiting outside for them. The child greeted them quietly and led them to the house. The house itself was unsettling. The outer walls were cracked and the wooden beams sagged as if the building could collapse at any moment. Inside it was worse. The air felt heavy, stale and cold. Every corner seemed to carry an unnatural silence. Erik and Anders exchanged uneasy glances, but they stayed calm. They didn't want to embarrass the family whose poverty was clear in every detail of their home. After entering the first room, they found the mother of the family sitting and waiting for them. Beside her was her 18-year-old son. But to Erik's shock, the boy was chained. His wrists, arms, and legs were bound tightly behind him, keeping him from standing or moving. Erik, startled, asked the mother what was going on. "Why is your child chained like this?" he said. The woman didn't answer right away. Instead, she asked them to sit down, promising to explain everything. Erik asked, "Is your husband here?" She looked down and replied with sadness, "My husband died 10 years ago. I'm the only one left to care for my children." Feeling sympathy for her situation, Erik and Anders promised to do everything they could to help. Then, the mother began to tell them what had been happening in her home. She started with her eldest son. He often liked to go for walks late at night. Even though she begged him to stop, he was stubborn, and no matter how much she insisted, he kept going. He would walk to an open patch of land near their house, an empty, lonely place with a few scattered trees at night. It was silent and dark and unsettling. He kept doing this until one night, he never came back. The next morning, she searched everywhere, asked neighbors, travelers, anyone who might have seen him, but no one had. Days passed, and by the 7th day, she had almost lost all hope, until there was knocks at the door. Strangers stood outside, and they had her son with them. They said, "We found him in an abandoned ground." He looked miserable. When she asked where they had found him specifically, they told her he was discovered near a cave somewhere in that abandoned ground. His mental state was severely disturbed. His words were incoherent, his behavior violent. He threw rocks at people, screamed endlessly, and seemed to have lost his mind completely. His mother tried everything she could to help him. Medicines, doctors, anyone who might offer relief, but her financial situation was dire. No medical institution would accept or contain him. It was beyond their control. With no other option left, she decided to chain him at home, fearing what he might do if he went outside again. Things worsened with time. They began hearing knocks in the middle of the night, not from outside, but from within the house itself. Strangers still. The knocks always came from an empty room, never from the walls shared with the neighbors. Even their food began to change. Meals she cooked fresh would suddenly turn rotten, filled with dirt, and reek of decay, though she knew everything had been perfectly clean. It kept escalating, the sounds, the sightings, the impossible decay, until their home became something unrecognizable. And with nowhere else to go, trapped by poverty and fear, they had no choice but to endure it all. While the mother was speaking about everything happening in their home, her younger son suddenly interrupted her. He wanted to share what had happened to him, what he had seen. One evening, after finishing his homework, he left his room to get a cup of water from the kitchen. But when he entered, he froze in shock. On the floor lay the pitch-black cat, fast asleep. Yet something was horribly wrong. Its body looked broken, twisted in on itself, as if every bone had been crushed. Its head was bent completely backward towards its body, almost unnoticeable at first glance. Yet it looked eerily calm, resting that way. Terrified, the boy grabbed a mop nearby and shouted while swinging towards the cat to scare it off. The cat bolted into the house, disappearing into the hallway. But when the boy followed it, it was gone, completely vanished. He searched everywhere but couldn't find it. The rest of his day passed without incident. But that night, when he went to bed, he had a dream that felt painfully real. In it, he saw himself finishing his homework, then walking to the kitchen for water. Exactly like before. The only difference was what awaited him there. Instead of the black cat, a very tall man laying in the same place. The man was covered entirely in black, with unnaturally long arms and a massive wooden club resting beside him. His face was horrifying, distorted, shadowed, almost impossible to look at. He was sleeping in the exact spot where the cat had been. But as soon as he took a step closer, the man's eyes snapped open. He glared directly in the boy's soul, then stood up so tall his head scraped the ceiling, tilting sideways just a bit. In a deep, monstrous voice, the man said, "Why did you disturb my sleep with that mop?" Then without hesitation, he raised the club and swung it straight into the boy's face. The hit felt real, so real that he jumped awake screaming. But when he touched his mouth, his hands were covered in blood. One of his teeth was missing, and the same part of his face that was struck in the dream throbbed in pain. It wasn't just a nightmare. It had really happened. A few days later, another strange event took place. The boy was home alone, asleep, when a loud voice called his name, followed by heavy knocking at the door. Startled, he ran to open it, but no one was there. He thought maybe one of his friends played a prank and left. He returned to his room trying to sleep again, but moments later, the same thing happened. Louder this time. Someone was banging on the door, screaming his name. He ran faster than before, swung the door open, and again. Nothing. Now terrified, he sat in his chair frozen, heart pounding. Then the knocking started again. But this time, it wasn't coming from the outside. It was coming from his room, right inside his closet. He turned slowly, staring at the closed door of his wardrobe as the knocks grew heavier. His whole body shook, then, right before his eyes, something crawled out. A human-like creature, completely naked, with no hair except for a thick patch covering its private parts. It moved on all fours, its limbs bending in unnatural ways, its face hidden in shadows as it crept towards him. The kid burst out of the house, running as fast as he could, screaming at the top of his lungs. The neighbors, alarmed by his cries, rushed over and tried to help to calm him down. When they went inside to see what had happened, they found nothing. Erik and Anders had helped people with similar problems before, but when the mother told them about her family's situation, they felt a little scared and worried. They realized this was something bigger than anything they had faced, but they kept their faith in God strong. They started reading sacred texts in the house and continued for a full hour. Then strange things began to happen. The lamps flickered on and off by themselves, and they felt like they were not alone, as if multiple people were walking around the room. But they didn't stop reading. They knew whatever evil was there was just trying to scare them. Even when the lights went out completely and didn't come back, they kept reading in the dark. After a while, the lights came back on, but then they saw something shocking. Footprints on the ceiling, like someone had been walking there. The footprints smelled so bad that it was almost unbearable. Erik and Anders knew that the situation was very serious. They told the mother to take her younger son and leave the house, leaving only the older son behind. It was hard for her, but Erik and Anders promised they would deal with the evil and get rid of the devils that cursed the house. She had no choice but to trust them. Erik and Anders decided to go home to rest, and return to the cursed house early the next morning. They brought holy water and some food for the other son. Erik began sprinkling holy water throughout the house, while Anders read sacred texts. He also tried to give the boy some holy water to drink, but the boy refused completely. So Erik started reading sacred texts over him instead. Suddenly he heard a loud voice coming from beneath the house. Erik went down on his knees, pressed his ear to the floor and listened. The voice, in a whisper, threatened him. "If you don't leave the house with your friend, you will both die, and in a very painful way." Erik didn't stop reading. He was determined. After a short while he heard another sound, this time louder. They realized these noises were only meant to distract them. After some time they had to stop reading because the older son began vomiting badly. It wasn't just the food, there was hair and strange impurities. They feared that if they kept going he might suffocate, so they paused to check on him. For several days they returned every day to read sacred texts. Each time something strange, scary, or bizarre would happen. Despite their repeated efforts, the evil in the house never went away. Eventually, they began to suspect that there was some secret behind the house that made it resistant to all their attempts to cleanse it. One night while sleeping at home, Erik dreamed that he was walking through a cave, dark, narrow, and cold like a grave. He felt himself suffocating until he suddenly woke up in fear. The next morning, he met with his friend Anders and told him about the dream. To their shock, Anders had seen the exact same nightmare. They immediately understood it wasn't just a dream, it was a vision, and it might be the key to solve the family's case. Anders explained that he had been reading some old books and ancient scriptures, and he found stories about demon tribes who tortured their victims in similar ways. One of the texts mentioned a sacred verse that could protect those with strong faith. It said, "By the flame unbroken and the breath untamed, I walk beyond the reach of shadow. Let the chains of night recoil from my path, and let no spirit find my name." After that, they went to see the mother and told her everything. She said it might be connected to the cave where her son had once been found nearby. When they asked her for directions, she showed them the exact location. Anders was nervous, but Erik stayed firm and told him to stay strong. They had to finish what they started and free the family from their curse once and for all. But that was their biggest mistake. The vision they thought was a message from above was actually the demons, luring them to their own place. They reached the cave and went inside, walking deeper and deeper until it felt endless. After a long time, they saw a faint light at the end and followed it. The strange part was that they had entered the cave in the morning, but now it was night. When they turned around to the cave's exit, it was gone, buried under the snow. They dug, but it was impossible to find. It was clear now. The cave was not just a passage. It was a gateway to the demon world, and they were trapped inside it. The wide desert stretched in every direction, and they didn't know which way to go. But far ahead on a mountainside, they could see small houses with dim lights. They started walking towards them. At first, it felt like the houses stayed the same distance away, no matter how far they went, as if the desert itself was keeping them away. Exhausted, they began reading sacred texts aloud. Slowly, the houses stopped moving away and started getting closer. As they got near it, they heard strange music, drums and flutes, sounds they had never heard before. Around the fire, creatures moved and chanted. They looked human at first, but their footprints didn't touch the snow, and they cast no shadows in the firelight. Erik and Anders realized they were not human. They were demons in a human form. One of the creatures noticed us and started walking in our direction, said Erik. His face was disturbing to look at. His features looked twisted as if they had been moved from their normal place. He said, "Come and sit." Erik said that he didn't even mean to respond. Without thinking, he whispered the words he always said when afraid. "In the name of God, the merciful." The moment I said that, every creature around the fire stopped dancing. They all turned toward us at once with angry faces and began walking closer. I realized I had made a mistake, but didn't know what to do. Then Anders grabbed my arm and shouted, "Run!" We started running as fast as we could. The creatures chased after us, their footprints echoing in the snow. We didn't know where we were going, we just knew we had to get away. In the middle of the chaos, with fear and adrenaline rushing through us, Anders suddenly remembered the sacred text from the book. He shouted it out loud. "By the flame unbroken and the breath untamed,
I walk beyond the reach of shadow,
let the chains of night recoil from my path,
and let no spirit find my name."
Right after he finished, everything around us disappeared. The fire, the music, the creatures, gone. Only the two of us remained, standing in the middle of an empty, snowy land. But there was something behind us. We could feel it, a heavy, powerful presence. Then comes the sound of slow footsteps in the snow. We couldn't run, we just turned around. What What we saw froze us in place. A huge creature, shaped like a man, but much taller, with horrifying features and a crown of wood decorated with blue insects on his head. He was riding a massive black horse. We understood right away. The sacred words hadn't been enough to drive this one away. He was the real deal. His voice shook the ground as he spoke. "Why are you here? Don't you know that this land is forbidden to the likes of you?" We explained everything. The cave, the house, the cursed family, and the chained son who had gone mad. The creature listened, then answered in a deep echoing tone. "You have no business with any of this. The chained one you speak of is the one who disturbed us. Leave this matter and never return." Erik replied, "If those are your final words, then show us the way out at least, and we'll never come back." The creature pointed towards a distant tree standing alone on the horizon. "Walk towards that tree," he said, "and you will see the cave's entrance opening before you. But remember this, no matter what happens, do not look back. Focus only on leaving. This is not a request, this is an order. Obey what you have been told. Now run." We immediately regained control of our bodies and ran towards the tree. Just as the creature had said, the entrance to the cave opened beneath the snow. We went inside, walking one in front of the other, since the tunnel was very narrow. At one point, Erik heard Anders screaming the name of his deceased mother. Then Anders began crying out in agony, as if he was in unbearable pain. Erik was terrified. He knew he wasn't supposed to look back, but he couldn't help it. When he turned, there was nothing. Panic surged through him, and he ran faster, keeping his eyes forward. When he finally emerged from the cave, he ran to the nearest village for help. He told the people the story, explaining that Anders was still trapped inside. When they returned to the cave, however, there was no path. The cave was just a small, closed space leading nowhere. Anders was gone. There was no trace of him. A few days later, the old son of the family couldn't bear the torment any longer, and died in his chains. The cops noticed that Anders hadn't returned home too, and Erik quickly became the main suspect. When they went to find him, they discovered him at his house, deeply sad and depressed over losing his friend, the one he had brought into all this. The police arrested Erik and jailed him while they investigated, trying to determine if he had anything to do with Anders' disappearance. The people of the small village tore down the old haunted house and helped the mother and her younger son move into a new home. It was small, but at least it was safe. 3 months later, one night in prison, prisoners began shouting about a terrible smell coming from Erik's cell. When the guards went to check, they found his body, dead. Beside him was a diary where Erik had written everything that happened to him and Anders on the other side, how he was innocent, and the voices that had followed him after leaving the cave. The strangest part was that just earlier that evening, Erik had been seen in a prison yard by guards and prisoners, walking around and sitting normally. He had seemed disturbed but alive. Now his body appeared to have been dead for weeks, decomposed, rotten, and covered in strange blue insects, unlike anything anyone had seen. And on the wall of his cell, written in blood, "You did not obey." This is it for this video, guys. I hope you liked the story, being the first one on the channel. If you like the content, stay tuned for new ones.